Hi, everyone. I'm Shaheen from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Natalie Binns, Senior Director of Demand Generation for Omnisend, which is a global marketing automation company based in the UK. Thanks so much for joining us, Natalie.
Hi, Shaheen. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So just to start out, can you just introduce yourself in your own words? Just tell us a bit more.
Sure. I am a marketing passionate, excitable individual, somebody that loves everything about business. And, in my spare time, I love travel, which obviously is not happening so much at the moment. I've worked in the tech space for far too many years. I don't really want to disclose that because it'll give away my age. But I've lived here in the UK. Obviously, I was born here and grew up here. I've also moved and lived in the Bay Area in the US for a few years and have often, worked for multinational, international businesses, but mainly in the sort of startup space in the tech industry.
Okay, very cool. Can you tell us, how did you get into that in the first place? What was your first foray into marketing? And then how did you kind of develop this specialization in tech?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my first kind of real business job, because I worked a lot as a young teenager in various different retail and other organizations. But I started out in a very small headhunting agency in recruitment. And that purely specialized in IT sales. And so I wasn't particularly great at IT when I was younger, but this was a real intro into the industry. And very quickly I realized that the jobs that we were filling and that we were looking to fill sounded really, really interesting to me. I learned more about the industry. So I moved into sales, started at a reseller and then moved into vendors. And I didn't have marketing departments. I didn't have anyone to generate leads or to promote brand awareness or create content. So it was very much hitting the phones, learning from conversations, learning from people around me and kind of understanding that actually we would be far more successful with a strong marketing team. And so as time went on, I got more and more interested in the early part of the sales process, the marketing side. And that really fascinated me and I really wanted to learn more. So that's kind of why I got into marketing and how I started out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And your most recent roles have been in demand generation. Can you tell us what that means exactly?
Demand gen, yeah. And it's one of those things that, for me, I've always had that mindset of generating business, finding opportunities, evangelizing what we do, telling the story and bringing new prospects into the business. So, demand gen is all about that really strong blend of outbound marketing and also combined with inbound integrated campaigns to bring in new business. So, in terms of demand gen, for me, it was a natural step because having come from that sales background where a lot of my roles were very much new business, cold calling or cold emails. That natural progression into bringing people in was something I got really excited about. Many people don't realize that marketing people have targets too. And actually with demand gen, one of the things that I love about it is that, it's very numbers oriented. It's very goals driven. You can show a real impact to your company's bottom line and really support the business in terms of revenue. So demand gen is all about helping the business bring in new opportunities for sales to close them or for them to self-serve close.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then how does what you do relate to content marketing? How does content play into it?
I couldn't do my job without content marketing. And, it's one of those things that has changed dramatically over time. The way in which people buy, has just evolved. And so content, I seem to remember content marketing not being discussed about sort of 12, 15 years ago, and starting to hear more and more about it being a thing, so to speak. And people started to see the real value from content, different types of content that would address different issues, provide different people within the same sales process at different stages with information they need in order to go through that journey journey. And, me as a buyer as well, a lot of marketing leaders, we have budgets to spend, we have technology to buy, we need to buy services that help us do our job effectively. And so we're also recipients of content. And so, for me, I need the right sort of content to bring people through that journey from never heard of us, don't really know much about what we do, don't really know what they need from a thought leadership perspective, and take them through that journey until they feel comfortable that they're ready to try and buy the product. And so, whether that's video content or whether it's written content, whether it's social content, it's all important, and getting the balance of the right techniques as well as the, giving somebody that's going to get real value from what you're providing rather than it just being a piece of content that is just done just for done's sake. So for me, I've been involved in it from managing that in previous companies to working extremely closely with our brand and content team at Omnisend, where, they provide ideas, they deliver on the content, and then my team, we go and execute that, we report on how things succeed, and then we share that back so that we're constantly optimizing and evolving our content strategy and our execution.
Okay, super cool. And can you tell us a bit more about your current role? Like, you just recently joined Omnisend, right?
Yeah, so I've been there sort of 7 months, which has been like really quick. And I don't know whether it's faster because of lockdown and COVID, or whether it's just, it's a great speed of a company in terms of how we do things. My role was a new role that was created to build a world-class demand gen function. There were a few people that were already within the organization, but bringing them together into, a team where we can share ideas and really focus on optimization. But we're a startup. So my personal role involves rolling up my sleeves and filling gaps where we don't perhaps have all the roles that we need, because we're always recruiting. And in fact, we're recruiting heavily at the moment. So, whether it's getting involved in partner marketing and working on partner events or partner activities and speaking to partners, which I love about my job, being able to really engage with our partner community and customers where possible, something I've always enjoyed in my career, to, getting involved in digital and looking at how our digital programs are performing, whether it's the creative or the copy or the content. So my role is very varied, but I'm also, very much, leading the team, mentoring the team and coaching them and helping them move forward in their careers, as well as working with the executive team on our plans to grow. We've been very successful the last few years in extreme growth. We're in a really strong position because we very much service the e-commerce space. And as you know, given everything that's been happening, e-commerce has just shot up like a rocket. We've been successful for many years. E-commerce has been, improving and increasing, but because all the shops were shut, certainly in the UK and in many parts, there's been local lockdowns. Businesses have had no choice but to really, push on the e-commerce space. And many people have been out of jobs, so have started new e-commerce businesses. And it's been seen to be, an area for real growth. So, for us as an organization, we've seen some real success there, but it requires us thinking about ourselves and making tweaks and optimizations and thinking about our strategy. And as we as an organization have chosen to move towards product-led growth, we're adapting and really trying to focus on the best customer experience. So other parts of my role spend time strategizing and working with the executives on how we make those switches, what changes we need to make, and what experiments we need to run in order to kind of find what the golden bullet is to show success.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, could you tell us a bit more like what Omnisend does?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I said, we serve the e-commerce space. We provide SMS and email marketing automation for the industry. So we typically deal with small to medium-sized businesses. And what we do is provide them with tools that allow them to provide not just an amazing customer experience, but to be able to act like a bigger organization by providing them with marketing automation. So for example, if you go onto an online store and you pick something that you want to buy and you've filled out your email address, but then you kind of leave it in your shopping cart, the company has automations set up, and then you as a prospective customer will get an email encouraging you to go back and look at that. So what we're doing is allowing businesses to drive sales, increase their sales dramatically without having to do more work. So we've got lots of different customers across the globe that are doing that, from donut companies that are selling online to clothing companies and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Could you tell us a bit like who your target client, or like where are you actually generating demand, and like how do you do that?
Yeah, so a lot of our demand is coming from the US and North America. There's a huge business there for e-commerce. There's also, plenty of e-commerce companies in the UK, in, other countries across Europe and Asia. In terms of our outbound focus, we put most of our efforts into English-speaking countries because our technology is English, so we know that it's more likely to resonate, but we have customers in plenty of other countries as well. How we're creating demand, it's a combination, and it's one of those things where you've got to really focus on driving brand awareness, which we have a dedicated brand team that's focused on that, doing podcasts, for example, and lots of other activities, press releases and blogs. We have a really solid SEO team that are creating really valuable content that's bringing people in organically. And then my team are generating campaigns to go out to the market on different channels. We're testing lots of different channels, whether that's the Facebook network, Google, Verizon, YouTube, many other channels that we're working on to get the name out there, explain what we do and why it's important, and show the value. So bring people in to the website. And quite simply, in our business, it's marketing's job to bring people to the website and get them to want to try the product. Try before you buy, because we believe that our product speaks for itself. So it's my team's job to really try and generate, interest and intrigue, and bring them in for that storytelling to get them to convert.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very cool. And then I wanted to ask you, like, how it is working for Omnisend, like, different from the other companies you've worked for?
I've worked in many startups. I've worked in some big companies as well, which, is very different. And, in some cases, especially if you stay within a similar industry, so I worked in a lot of different IT security companies. They were quite similar, going from company to company. I believe Omnisend has been very different for me, which I really wanted in this next move. Very different industry. It was quickly evident to me that although I understand the e-commerce space, they speak a different language. There's terminology that I didn't necessarily know before. The way that they describe customers in the industry is quite different from other industries I've worked within. Also, as an organization, the communication is really great. So from day one, on my very first day, I joined company all hands meeting, which happens every single Monday. And every department talks about what's going on at a high level. And obviously you can find out more should you need to. And at the end of the session, there's an Ask Me Anything, which is you submit anonymous questions to the execs and they'll answer those questions. And so from day one, it was really apparent that the communication was really open. It's a reasonably flat structure as an organization. No idea or question is frowned upon. And, that respect goes throughout the whole organization. I'm sure everybody that's listening to this, has worked for political organizations I've worked for companies where there's been no politics, and Omnisend is exactly that kind of organization. There is a fundamental respect. We don't always get on, but we respect each other to work together and find a resolution. In every growing organization, you're going to come up with occasional conflict, but I would say that everything within Omnisend is with a positive angle. And I really believe in the team and the people that I work with. There's a lot of super smart people that I think, again, for me, I always want to join a company where I can learn from people around me, whether they report into me, whether they're peers, or whether they are above me. And, I get taught things every single day by different people in the organization. So it really is a great place to be.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, sounds like a great company culture. Well, next, I just wanted to ask about what's your favorite aspect of your job?
I really like the variety of it, and I've always liked that about demand gen being very focused on numbers, so you can really see when you're winning. It's always a challenge, because every quarter or every month you're back to zero effectively. So it's a challenging environment, but I like the variety of it. And I also like it when, we uncover something pretty special, when we do something and it works really well. And I also like the experimental side of it, the fact that what might have worked in my previous company or in a company 2 years ago or in a different industry doesn't necessarily work now, even if you repeat the exact same experiment. The industry is changing, how we're buying is changing, everything we're doing is changing. So, even if we tested something in the same company 3-6 months ago, it might work now that didn't work before, or it might not work today when it was working before. So it's that constant evolving optimization and the constant change that for me just makes me excited to come to work every day, even if it is just kind of walking from one end of the house to the other.
Yeah, it's true these days. You don't have to go very far.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where do you see the industry going in the future?
It's going to just continue to grow. With COVID, it's obviously expedited the e-commerce space. But I think, a lot has changed in business generally and the way in which we do things. We've seen this particularly in the UK, where, a lot of people have moved out of London. London has always been a thriving city, and there'll always be people in London. But people realize they don't have to be in the office every day. And as we move back to some kind of normality, many businesses, whether that's in finance or any other kind of, business where people are in the office every day, they're changing. And so you won't be popping out at lunchtime to get your sandwich and then going to a store. You won't necessarily be shopping in the way that you have been. If you're at home, it's far easier to get things delivered. And I think that's something that, whether you were an avid Amazon or whatever shopper in the past, more people are opening themselves up to buying things that they perhaps wouldn't have bought online before, where they would have gone to a store, whether that's furniture or something else. So I think it's going to continue to grow. I think people are starting to understand more about how to sell online. The challenge is going to be actually the supporting industries keeping up, like the delivery supply chain industries, making sure that they can fulfill what e-commerce companies are going to need. But I think as the industry evolves, companies have to make sure that they are doing best practices. They are using marketing automation. SMS is going to pick up. I think SMS has been really big in the US for a little while now, and it's growing month on month in terms of the amount of marketing SMSs that are going out. Here in the UK, I get the occasional one from a big company, but I think that's going to become more common as our inboxes are filled with lots and lots of emails. I think it's going to be a quicker and easier way to get in front of an individual who spends most of their time on their phone. So it will continue to grow.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's something I guess you have to be tactful about, because it's something that's so so visible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure, yeah, there's a lot of room for creativity there too. Speaking of like working from home, wanted to ask you about like maintaining work-life balance. How do you manage?
Oh, that's great. That's a really great question. Actually, as I've got some new hires joining, I've just had somebody join a couple of weeks ago, and I've got a new lady joining next week. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. And I think, certainly the UK culture used to be that you really needed to be in the office and work really long days, especially before the days of having laptops at home. And we've become this blended society where you're kind of always on, to the point that, years ago, you used to be able to go on holiday and you wouldn't have any Wi-Fi, you'd have no signal. So you'd go without your email for a couple of weeks and you got a real break, and we don't do that anymore. So for me, I try and practice what I preach, but it doesn't always happen. I try and encourage my team to use their time effectively. There's no brownie points for late night or weekend emails or work that, they don't get extra points for that. I'm not counting how many hours they're working. I care about them doing the job that needs to be done. Equally flexible, some days you're just not feeling it, and you need to work slightly different hours, and so whatever it takes to get the job done. Life does get in the way, and one of the things that has been more challenging the longer this kind of lockdown situation goes on, where you can't see friends and family and you don't have that kind of social interaction, whether you live alone or whether you have a family or a partner there, it does become difficult to really relax, because the things that we're in a society where you're constantly busy. You're commuting, you're going out for drinks, you're going to the cinema, you're working, you're going to a work event, you're traveling. There's a lot going on. So it's not necessarily about the physical relaxation. It's more about the mental switch off. And I think it is really hard when people are working from home full time and there's this feeling that you need to be online all the time. I encourage my team to be very specific about, what do you need to do today? What has to be done today? And when you've done that, if you've got loads of time and you've got something you want to start early, then crack on and do it. But think about how you want to work and think about switching off, and make sure that you have time for yourself, because it's really important that you are fresh. There's nothing worse than when you're burnt out and you're not thinking straight. For me, a 12-hour day is not any better than an 8-hour day. You're not going to be more productive in 12 hours. You're going to work longer, you're going to be more tired, but you're not going to actually achieve any more. Whereas for me, I work really well under pressure. So if I give myself, okay, I've got to do something at 6, I've got to finish at 6 today, I'll have a focus hour and I'll probably get more done in that intense time than I would if I was like, well, I'll finish at 7, I'll finish at 8. I'm much more productive if I really kind of focus in on, okay, time, get moving, get things done quickly. Yeah. So work-life balance, generally, it's really important that people have breaks. I don't turn my laptop on at the weekends. Once it gets shut down, I'm blessed. I do have a dedicated office in my house. I can shut this. Yes, I have Slack on my phone. And yes, I will answer questions. But if I have to open my laptop, that's me working. If I can answer it whilst I'm watching some trash TV, let's not go there, then I can do that whilst I'm sat on the sofa.
Yeah, I think like with marketing roles, it's especially like challenging to turn off, because it's like your job is to like be on all these platforms that are constantly distracting you. And then it's of course mind work in itself, so it's hard, you can't turn off your mind. So
yeah. I will say that Omnisend is one of the few companies that really does care about work-life balance, and there's been many meetings and conversations, and we have things set up for wellness and like yoga time and things like that. And there's very clear rules on what you can and can't do in terms of Slack and emailing people out of hours. And there's many people with families, and it's not frowned upon if you kind of work to to rule, which it used to be called work to rule, but if you work your dedicated hours, it's not frowned upon. It's all about getting the job done as effectively as we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great policy. So kind of a related question, like what are your daily habits that you would say have
daily
habits to your success?
Okay, so this is probably a daily habit, particularly that kicked off the beginning of the year, as all good new habits do. For me, getting in daily exercise, I spend a lot of my time at my laptop, and I'm not alone in this, and I don't have a standing desk yet. But the thing is, you spend so much time sat down. So every single morning, me and my other half, our alarm goes off at 6 o'clock in the morning, which isn't easy when it's dark and raining. But we get up, we throw on some clothes, and we go out and we do a power walk around our local area. And on some days it's very nice, and on other days it's quite grim. But that sets us up for the day. Having a really good power walk, waking my brain up, getting a bit of fresh air, and then coming back, and then it's shower time, breakfast, and then I start pretty much at 8. And sometimes I go straight into a meeting, and other days I can sort of collect my thoughts and look at my emails first. It depends on what's going on. Many of the team work in Lithuania, so they're a couple of hours ahead of us, so I like to get in early. But that kind of starting the day really has changed a lot of things for me. Being awake earlier means I don't stay up as late, because I'm a bit of a lightweight like that. But also just, having the time before I start work to really get my brain functioning. And, I've never been one of these people that can, get up and read blogs and like write long things straight away. I need to wake my brain up and stimulate in another way. So that walk and getting up at 6 means that I often get up really early on a weekend as well. But it's the best way for a habit for me.
Yeah, very cool. Kind of a chance to calibrate yourself before starting other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Next, just I wanted to ask if you have a professional role model or a source of inspiration.
Do I have several, and it's timely because it was International Women's Day a couple of days ago. I've been really blessed in my career. Over the years, I've met some really wonderful, super smart, passionate women, and it's not just women, but it's been mainly women that I've come across. I've come across many fantastic men as well, but I have a group of my go-to women, and it turns out that a lot of my friends are actually marketing execs in tech companies. It's just kind of organically gone that way. And we do spend a lot of time talking about different marketing tactics. And, there's a couple of people that I see as my role models, that I've worked with in the past, and I've followed their careers, and, they're people in my life. So I don't really have like a celebrity, a well-known person. But these are people that, count as my very dear friends, and people I will chew the fat with. I will talk to them about, okay, so how do we fix this problem? And what are you doing on this? Or who would you recommend for this? And they're also people that I would go on holiday with, should we be able to travel again, and drink 1 or 2 cocktails with. So, I'm very, very lucky to have those people in my life.
Yeah, awesome. That's the best, to have role models who you can actually talk to and interact
exactly
with. Yeah, and learn from directly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do you have any book recommendations for us?
So I went to the Women's Watermark Conference a couple of years ago in Silicon Valley, in San Jose, and a lady came on stage, and I was embarrassed that I didn't know who she was at the time, and it was a lady called Brené Brown. And I was in awe of her. Not knowing who she was, I was in awe of her. She was just such a great storyteller. Everything she said pretty much resonated with me. And then when I got the opportunity to get her book, Dare to Lead, it just really inspired me. And then I went on, and there's a Netflix show that she's done. She's done TED Talks. But Dare to Lead, for me, one of the biggest things that stood out was about communication. and what's going on in your head, and being able to communicate that with people that you're working with to get things done. But whether you listen to her audiobook, because she speaks on her audiobook, or whether you read the actual book, it really resonated to any leaders. And you don't have to be in marketing to really appreciate it. There was a lot that resonated with me. She's not a marketing person, but she really understands about vulnerability and leadership. And so, that's something that really resonated with me. So Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Very cool. I'll have to check that one out. And then, do you have any favorite software tool or app that you've been using recently?
Favorite? I guess,
or novel maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, one of the things that I really need for my job is Trello. It's not necessarily a marketing tool, it's more of a time management, project management, organization tool. I find it great for collaboration and getting stuff done. I use it with external agencies where they're on a different time zone and we need to communicate, and we just drop messages in and tag each other, and it's just so useful in what we do. Trello is probably something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I love Trello. And I always try to go to more complicated solutions and then come back to Trello.
No, why complicate it?
Well, more, I don't know, advanced, I guess. But
no, I love Trello, it's great.
But yeah, definitely. Well, then I also just wanted to ask, how do you stay up to date on marketing trends, and what resources would you recommend for other marketers?
Google. So I guess, when it comes to marketing trends, there's a few publications, Marketing Week, Ad Week, I like to see, although it's not always very dedicated to my industry in terms of technology, it's more kind of general marketing. I did a mini MBA course on marketing with Marketing Week last year, and that gave me a great insight. It kind of did span more about the B2C world than the B2B world, but it was really interesting to kind of learn different techniques that still apply to B2B. And so, whether it's gathering information from those publications, but I think most marketers, and I'm not any different, we have something that we're working on. So for us, the big thing that we're focusing on is PLG, product-led growth. How do we do marketing for product-led growth? How do we create demand for product-led growth? So I spend less time looking at marketing trends at the moment and more looking into the product-led growth strategies. And because it's quite a new thing, there's very little out there. So it does take, learning from what the information is and then actually learning on the job. But I tend to read more than I listen, I'd say. I don't have any kind of core podcasts apart from this one, of course, that I listen to on a regular basis. It's more about reading blogs or articles. And, I'm quite avid on Twitter and LinkedIn. I like to read what my network are talking about and comment and share on those things.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're reaching the end of the interview, so I just wanted to give you the chance to give us any final takeaways or any parting advice for other marketers. Sure.
I mean, marketing is a living, growing thing, isn't it? It's changed a lot over the years, and any advice that I could give is the same that would be given to me, which is to kind of just always grow, just always adapt, be vulnerable, and be aware that you should be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's something that one of our executives talks about a lot. If you are comfortable, you're in your comfort zone, then you're probably not learning and you're probably not progressing further. So it's good to be uncomfortable, and it's good to be feeling that you don't know all the answers. So, and that's what's great about marketing, is that I don't think any of us know all the answers. We're learning as we go. So that's kind of the main thing. And, if you are in the e-commerce space and you are looking to get some, email or SMS marketing automation for your sort of small to medium startup, do check out Omnisend. It's free. You can try it for free. It's a free product as well, and have a go and see what you think.
Yeah, excellent. And for anyone who wants to learn more about what you do or connect, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Me, there's probably LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn, so there's probably a few Natalie Binnses, but look at Natalie Binns from Omnisend, and you'll find me. I'm also on Twitter. I think my handle is at Binns Natalie, because I think Natalie Binns had been taken. So I'm pretty open on those, and I like to converse with people. So, I'm happy for anyone to reach out.
Okay, excellent. We'll definitely include those handles in the show notes that go along with this episode on our blog. Well, so thank you so much, Natalie, for sharing your insights with you today. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks to everybody for listening in. For more perspectives on content marketing in Europe, check out thecontentmix.com and keep tuning into the podcast for daily interviews with content experts. See you next time. Bye.